who played on championship teams at Holy Ghost Prep. Mark Naples never played on a state championship team. Fact is, none of the teams he played on ever won the district. Actually, he didn't even win a league championship with any of the teams for which he played. You probably start to wonder, well, why is this guy being inducted into the Hall of Fame? And especially in this day and age where professional, college, and even high school athletes seem to be evaluated very much on what the teams on which they played accomplished. And if they didn't hit that pinnacle, they didn't win the top award in their sport, it seems like a lot of their accomplishments are very much diminished. However, there's a few guys, we'll name a few pro people, who didn't win any championships in their careers. And they weren't too bad. You know, guys like Ernie Banks, Carl Yastrzemski, Ted Williams, Dan Marino, Barry Sanders, Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing. I could go on for quite a while, but I don't think Jim would appreciate that too much. Mark Naples, you're in pretty good company with a group of guys like that, so I wouldn't feel too embarrassed by not playing on a championship team. Mark did have a great career at Holy Ghost. I'm not going to get into the details. You have a program that has all the details in it. He was an outstanding two-sport athlete, all area, all district, or rather all area and all league in two sports, soccer and baseball. And he had a very impressive career. He was probably the best defensive outfielder I have ever coached at Holy Ghost Prep. He definitely had the best arm of any outfielder that ever played at Holy Ghost Prep. Now you're probably starting to wonder, well, he has such a great arm, and yet there isn't that much about him in terms of being a pitcher at Holy Ghost Prep. Well, we didn't miss that. We did try him there, and he gave us a little bit of help on the mound. But the funny thing about Mark was he could throw strikes from 300 feet away in center field. No problem. When we put him 60 feet away on the mound, my heart couldn't take too many appearances on the mound from Mark. He made Mitch Williams very proud when he got out there. No, Mark didn't win any championships, but the one thing that he did is he taught the underclassmen, and there were many underclassmen on both his soccer team and his baseball team in his senior year. He taught them how to win. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a snapshot of Mark's final few games in his senior year in high school in baseball. The BAL, as it frequently has its little quirky rules, at that time, we had two teams from the BAL would go to the district playoffs each year. And in order to qualify, one of the teams would be the league champion, which made a lot of sense, and the second one was the team that had the best record in the last 10 games. So I'll explain that a little bit. The last 10 games were kind of a round robin where every team played each other. So we started off that district qualifying round by losing the first two games. Not a very good start. All right, then we went on and we won 5 of the next 6, and we put ourselves in a position where if we could win out with the last 3 games, we're going to make it to the districts. So we run into Jenkintown. Jenkintown had a real good pitcher, and we found ourselves down 6-3 in the bottom of the 7th inning. You got to realize that in high school you normally play 7 innings. And we were fortunate enough to, in the bottom of the 7th, to load the bases with 2 out. And who would come to the plate but Mark. And I know you're all expecting, this great story. Mark hits this grand slam, walk-off home run, and we win the game and we get into the districts and all that. Not quite the way it happened. And I kind of prevented that from happening. Mark stepped up to the plate and we're down 3, 2 outs. This is our last chance. And I called for a bunt. Now, we bunted a lot. I mean, there was a time where we laid down 7 consecutive successful bunts in one game. But Mark, being the cool guy he was, he looked down, saw the signal, and stepped right into the batter's box. I was ready to call a timeout. I figured he never even saw the signal. I mean, he's acting too cool. Usually, you give a signal like that in that situation, and the guy's going to give you a double take, probably shake his head a little bit, and then ruin the whole idea because the other team knows something strange is going to happen. Well, Mark laid down the bunt. Pitcher picked the ball up, threw it 10 feet over the first baseman's head into right field. The right fielder was running in because he thought the game was over. And by the time the play was over, Mark was standing on third base, and 3 runs were scored, and we had tied the game. We went on to win that game in 10 innings, and then we won the next 2. In those 3 games, Mark went 6 hits for 9 at-bats, 4 doubles, 5 RBIs, 5 runs scored. No, Mark didn't win any championships, but he showed people how to play. He had that drive, he had that determination, he had that persistence, and above all, and I know you've heard this word mentioned tonight, he had that mental toughness, and he imbued that into those players, those younger players with whom he was playing. The following year in baseball, the team went undefeated, won the league, set a school record of 20 consecutive victories, won the league championship that year and the following year. The following year in soccer, the team won the first ever Holy Ghost Prep Soccer Championship and followed up with a league championship the year after that. And I really felt that Mark had his imprint on those teams, because so many of these guys that were softs and juniors when he was a senior learned from him and learned what it took to win athletic contests. And that's why I have a great respect for Mark, and that's why he is here tonight. After Haverford and Holy Ghost, Mark tried a lot of different interesting occupations. He taught and coached at a prep school for a few years. He worked at the White House as a lobbyist. He worked in the business world, eventually setting up his own business, which he still runs in New York City. And he resides with his wife, Anne Marie, and 3 children in Philadelphia. And it's a great pleasure to introduce to you our baseball inductee to the Hall of Fame, Mark Naples.
What's that?
Should I run and grab a picture?
Yeah.
Golly. Thanks, Coach. I do remember that. You know, it's a long time ago, but I remember how nervous I was back then. Thanks, everybody. Congratulations to all the honorees. Very happy to be here tonight. Thanks to my friends that came, Tom Beck from Ocean City, and Chris, Ken Rouse, Joe Quinlan. This brings back a lot of memories for me. Guys, I mean, I'm in the class of 80. It's been a while. Jim Stewart's phone call with great news about the Hall of Fame was a big surprise. I mean, a long time ago, there were so many great athletes at GOATs. I mean, there have been since, but during my years, Ken Rouse is the fastest guy I've ever been with. Paul Kardish was about my size, maybe an inch taller than I was, but he was a power forward on the basketball team, and he had 33 points in a game against Kennedy, which was a really good team then. He was fantastic. And, you know, Craig Baldwin was this decathlete, who was this fantastic athlete. And there was this kid, Ted mentioned that the class after I graduated that won all those games. There was a freshman on my senior year that I got to give a ride home to up in Yardley during those years, during those last weeks of my senior year. Chris Marchak obviously went on to some success. Great player, you know, great student, went to Harvard, and ended up playing in Montreal Expos. You know, and he's a fantastic guy. There's so many great guys here. So many great role models and great individuals. So this is a huge honor for me tonight. It's really, really fun. But there's another reason, and it's part of the years thing, but I'll get to that. It's been a long time since I thought of myself as anything resembling an athlete. I met my beautiful wife, Anne-Marie, in 2004. I was 42 by then. That was a decade after I'd broken my neck playing baseball in the DC Industrial League, a really freak injury. So Anne-Marie certainly hasn't thought of me as anything resembling an athlete. See, honey, I told you I wasn't making that stuff up. If you identify yourself as an athlete, your identity changes pretty dramatically when doctors tell you not to work out anymore. And doctors told me that because I kept trying to get back into shape after my first surgery in '95, but I kept finding myself back in the hospital. I spent the first 10 days of 2001 under sedation on a steroid drip after doctors told me I had to lose use of my hands before I turned 50 from all the nerve damage in my spine. That was my last chance, that drip was, before they were going to remove a few ribs and remove my laminate in the spine. Really, really radical surgery. But the drip worked. I haven't had any surgery since. Before I had that last surgery, I had never broken 90 on the golf course before then, but I shot a 73 a few years later. See, what I had learned about competing at Ghost went well beyond the games on the field, as it should, right? One of the best things about sports in my experience, especially at Ghost, and what coaches like Ted Grabowski and Tony Chapman and Bill Snyder taught me was that, how to compete. How to compete. Ted talks about me being mentally tough. Thank you, Ted. And that's a really, really great honor from you. Because of that, it's no mystery to me why my business career took off when my athletic channel to compete suddenly ended. I suddenly directed all my competitive energies into business, and I still do. If athletes get just that from their coaches, that jones to compete, well, that's a lot, right? The second gift from these coaches that I had here was an even bigger bonus, though. These guys were my mentors. They were not merely my mentors, they taught me about mentorship. They took the time every time. The coaches here were very focused on that, and it made me feel very fortunate when I was here. The community my coaches here fostered on their teams and the mentoring abilities they provided for my years following is something I regard as invaluable. I had wonderful coaches at Holy Ghost Prep, and I realized even more when I was teaching and coaching at a DC prep school, a very snooty prep school called St. Albans, in my 20s. I was in over my head, but I could handle it. In my case, mentorship and what they taught me about mentorship, what these guys taught me about mentorship, has played a vital role in every endeavor, especially on the teams I've mentioned in business, my own business now, and of course in my personal life too. Coach Chapman's best friend from childhood, Joe Quinlan, is probably the main reason I'm here tonight. Even though we didn't overlap here or have it in college, Joe was, I guess, 6 or 7 years ahead of me. His mentorship has meant everything to me. I wasn't a confident kid, and I was very needy in some ways when I went to college. Mentorship from guys like Joe enabled me to develop confidence. It's that simple. Without that, I don't know, what happens? Joe and I remain great friends, and we're also friends with numerous men I coached at St. Albans or we've mentored through Haverford Connections. 3 of these guys are either general managers or assistant general managers in Major League Baseball teams today. One of these guys is getting married right now. His vows went at 8 o'clock today. And I told him, hey man, sorry, I can't make it. Hall of Fame. It's really, really makes me feel good. That guy's 35 years old. His name's Ryan. But he still seems like a young man to me, just as I probably seem to you, Coach. Maybe not. Thank you. But I have to tell you, you don't look like you've aged a year. I wonder if that has anything to do with how good your work is or how good your works are. Good stuff. It's really, really good stuff. Here's one other thing you gave me, Coach Grabowski. Do you remember where you were when Bucky Dent hit that home run in the famous play-in game at Fenway Park in 1978? You guys know the thing I'm talking about, right? Bucky Dent's infamous home run here at Red Sox fan. We were watching it on a little 9-inch black and white TV in your office. You gave me an appreciation of a game and a discipline, and of course this whole mentorship thing, that's never left. Fact is, I never knew I was any good at baseball or could be any good at baseball until you told me. A short time after I played that golf round I mentioned, in 2007, I ran into my old friend Tom Holt while I was golfing with Anne-Marie. Tom was a class behind me at Holy Ghost, so maybe a year younger than I am. But he was golfing with his grandson while I was golfing with my fiancée. By then, Tom's son Eric, who you met earlier, was well on his way to becoming club champion. Fantastic golfer. I still think about that juxtaposition sometimes, that juxtaposition between my friend and peer having grandchildren and me just starting my life with my wife. And it makes me think of the identification that flows through meaningful mentorship, especially when I'm enjoying time with our kids, or just enjoying time with the guys that I've already referenced as my mentors. See, Tom was having a great time that day with his grandson. I'd never seen him smile like that. That's another great thing about mentorship. Even the hardest work involved. Really fun. I had a great time. None of us has ever achieved anything, especially in athletics, without mentorship. I'm very grateful for my mentors for all this. Thanks.